Have you ever wondered why the most elusive woman in the room is the one that haunts a man's mind the longest? Not the loudest, not the most generous with her affection, not even the most conventionally beautiful, but the one whose soul seems wrapped in a velvet mist he can't quite penetrate. Her eyes don't beg to be seen, her presence doesn't plead to be held, and yet men find themselves orbiting around her gravity, unable to explain the pull. It's not flirtation, it's not chemistry, it's something deeper, ancient, archetypal. Carl Jung would tell us this is not about her at all. This is about him. The emotionally untouchable woman becomes a mirror, a screen, a projection field for everything a man has lost, denied, or disowned within himself. She is not cold, she is sovereign. And in that sovereignty she becomes a psychological trigger, an unconscious wound reawakened. She is not merely a person, she is a symbol, a living embodiment of anima, the feminine image dwelling within a man's soul, shaped by every mother, every lover, every silence, every rejection. You see, most men are not taught to confront their emotions. They are taught to conquer them, to hunt, to possess, to decode, and eventually claim. So, when they encounter a woman who doesn't yield, who doesn't explain herself, who remains still in the storm of their expectations, they are thrown into a silent chaos. She is the test they didn't study for. She is the storm that won't be calmed. The emotionally untouchable woman does not play a game. She simply is, whole unto herself. Her boundaries are not walls, they are altars, and the man who stands before her is not being rejected. He is being reflected. His obsession is not desire. It is the echo of his own inner exile, whispering that something sacred has gone missing within him. Her distance reawakens the ache of his own emotional absence. It is not her aloofness that captivates. It is her freedom, because she does not flinch when he pulls away. She does not panic when he grows cold. She does not chase. And in that refusal to abandon herself for his comfort, she embodies something rare, the energy of the eternal feminine uncorrupted by need. She has seen too much, felt too much, and resurrected herself too many times to be impressed by attention. She knows that true connection cannot be seduced. It must be recognized. And that, precisely, is what unsettles him. He is not being seduced, he is being summoned. This woman holds a mirror that says, "Go deeper." But most men aren't ready for that depth. So instead of journeying inward, they linger outside her gates, calling her difficult, detached, unfeeling. They miss the truth. She feels more than most, and has mastered herself to survive it. If you, as a woman, have ever been called too much or too little by men who couldn't meet you where you stood, understand this. It was never about you. You were simply standing in your wholeness, and that wholeness scared them. Not because you are intimidating, but because your integrity exposes their fragmentation. You did not reject them. You refused to abandon yourself. That, to the unconscious male ego, is unbearable. Jung spoke of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we repress and deny. For many men, emotional vulnerability, softness, dependence, and awe toward the feminine have been buried in that shadow. When a woman appears who does not beg, who does not collapse, who does not hand over her soul for crumbs, she drags that shadow into the light, not by force, but by contrast. Men obsess over emotionally untouchable women because they are not chasing her. They are chasing their own wholeness. Her inaccessibility is not a flaw. It is an invitation to grow, to see, to burn away the false and uncover the sacred. But that journey is not easy, and not every man will take it. He may call her names to make himself feel safer. Cold, damaged, heartless, arrogant, because it is easier to deflect the fire than to walk into it, Easier to reduce her to a label than to confront the truth. She activates something primal, something terrifying, something holy. This woman has likely lived lifetimes within a single body. She has touched abandonment and turned it into self-reliance. She has been betrayed, not once but often, and yet chose not to harden, but to alchemize. She is not without scars, she is built of them. And it is precisely this silent wisdom, this lived intensity, that confuses the modern man. He is used to performance, to pretense, to validation as currency. But her currency is truth, and truth cannot be bought. It must be earned. In the presence of a woman who will not emotionally bend to his will, a man is forced to face a haunting question. Who am I if I cannot possess her? That question is not about romance. It is about identity, because many men have been taught to define themselves by what they can control, dominate, or win. She offers none of that. She offers presence, nothing more and nothing less. And so he oscillates between fascination and frustration. He wants her closeness, but not the accountability her presence demands. He wants her softness, but not the self-awareness required to receive it. He wants her loyalty, but not the transformation it would take to be worthy of it. And when he cannot own her, he obsesses. Because obsession is the unconscious mind's desperate attempt to reconcile with that which the ego cannot contain. She becomes myth in his psyche, the one who escaped, the one who didn't kneel, the one who left him aching without explanation. And yet, beneath the ache is a truth he dares not say aloud. She made me feel alive. Not because she gave herself away, but because she didn't. And in that refusal, she awakened a deeper longing, not just for her body, but for his own buried soul. This is where Jung's wisdom pierces deepest. The anima, the inner feminine, is not just about idealized love or romantic infatuation. It is the gateway to integration. The emotionally untouchable woman becomes a symbol of the soul he must retrieve from the underworld of repression. To truly meet her, he must descend. He must abandon conquest and embrace transformation. But few men are ready to lose their armor, and so they fantasize instead. They replay the moments. They dissect her every word. They wonder why she didn't need them, why she didn't cling, why she seemed so full without their presence. They don't understand. She did not need to win them. She had already won herself. If you, as a woman, have ever felt punished for not needing, for not giving more than was asked, for standing calmly in your boundaries, know this: your peace is power. Your silence is sacred. You're not too complex. You're not hard to love. You simply refuse to collapse into a version of yourself that exists only to soothe his ego. You've walked through fire. You've stitched your soul back, together without applause. You don't need to be rescued. You've already rescued yourself. That is why he obsesses. Because in your wholeness, he sees the fragments of himself scattered like glass across the floor of his inner world. And when he looks into your eyes and sees that you are not asking to be completed, something ancient in him crumbles. Because he has spent his whole life preparing to be a savior, not a student. You are the lesson he wasn't ready for. Not because you were unkind, but because you were unavailable to anything less than reverence. And reverence, for many, is foreign soil. It requires humility. It requires the death of the small self, the one that conquers, that collects, that categorizes women into roles: the nurturer, the pleaser, the forgiver. The emotionally untouchable woman belongs to none of those roles. She is not here to play a part. She is here to be, fully, without dilution, without apology. Her power does not come from resistance. It comes from remembrance. She remembers who she is. And because of that, she does not lean forward. She leans inward, into her knowing, into her energy, into the sacred boundary between her essence and the expectations of others. She does not punish with her distance. She simply refuses to abandon her center. In a world that feeds off female insecurity, her self-possession becomes an act of spiritual rebellion. She is no longer the little girl hoping to be chosen. She has become the woman who chooses. And this shift, this internal sovereignty, dismantles the very foundation upon which many men have built their sense of worth. That a woman's love is something to win, to wear like a medal, to display as proof of value. But when she does not play that game, the field disappears. There is nothing to win, nothing to control, only a mirror. And in that mirror he sees everything he has not yet dared to confront. His fear of insignificance, his unresolved maternal hunger, his secret craving for tenderness, for depth, for awe. She awakens his ache but offers no balm, because the balm is not hers to give. It never was. So he obsesses, not out of lust, but out of longing. Not for her, but for the part of himself she unlocks. The man he could become if he stopped chasing and started becoming. The man who does not need to earn love through performance. The man who can sit in presence without demanding affection as a reward. The man who is not threatened by a woman's mystery, but invited. By it, this woman does not confuse silence with weakness. She does not chase validation in half-hearted texts or lukewarm attention. She is not aroused by inconsistency. She is aroused by depth, by soul, by men who have bled enough to stop pretending. She can smell performance from across a room. She is not seduced by charm. She is drawn to truth. And truth is terrifying to the man who still wears masks. To be emotionally untouchable is not to be numb. It is to have refined your energy so completely that you no longer leak your power to those who cannot hold it. It is not a fortress. It is a frequency. And only those vibrating at the same resonance will ever feel welcomed inside. For the rest, she remains untouchable. Not because she is playing hard to get, but because they are playing with illusions. She has no time for half-truths, for borrowed personas, for shallow attraction dressed as intimacy. She wants soul to soul, or nothing at all. And that is the core of why men obsess. Because she is the rare woman who will not perform to soothe their wounds. She will not collapse into caretaking. She will not barter her truth for attention. She will not shrink to make someone feel taller. She is not afraid of being alone, because her solitude is sacred. And that is the scariest thing of all. She does not need them. She may desire. She may connect. She may even fall in love, but never at the expense of herself. Never in exchange for her voice. Never again. This is the emotional alchemy that terrifies and magnetizes men at once. She will not carry his shadow. She will hand it back to him lovingly and say, "This is yours to face." And in that moment, the obsession begins. Because deep down, he knows. She is the threshold between who he is and who he could become. But thresholds are not easy places to dwell. They demand movement, initiation, transformation. And so the man finds himself suspended, not fully in, not fully out, haunted not by rejection, but by potential. What he could have become beside her, what he still might if he dares to dismantle the scaffolding of his false self. The emotionally untouchable woman is not there to fix him, to mother him, or to wait for him to evolve. She is the signal fire, the mythic call, the Sophia of his unconscious whispering through her presence. Meet yourself, or leave me alone. She does not shout. She does not lecture. She does not chase after his enlightenment. She simply walks with unwavering grace. And in her wake, men are left to confront themselves. She is the invitation and the consequence. And those who cannot rise to meet her will often do the cruelest thing of all, call her broken for refusing to be less. But the truth is, she has simply remembered something most have forgotten, that love is not real if it costs you your soul, Her untouchability is not cruelty, it is clarity. It says, I am not here to be decoded. I am here to be met. Not with charm, not with flattery, but with authenticity. Because she has walked too many nights alone, whispering her name back into her bones to let anyone rename her now. And so she becomes the obsession of men who are not yet whole. Not because she teases, not because she withholds, but because she exists outside the game entirely. While others bend, she remains. While others seduce, she sees. And being truly seen, not admired, not desired, but seen, is unbearable to those who are still hiding. You may recognize this within yourself. Perhaps you've been blamed for the confusion your presence caused in others. Perhaps you've been told you're intimidating, when all you did was speak without asking permission. Perhaps you've had to shrink just to make someone feel safe, and when you didn't, they called you distant. Know this, your power lies not in being understood, but in being unalterable. The woman who cannot be emotionally manipulated is not heartless. She is healed. Not healed in the fairy tale sense of completion, but healed in the warrior's sense. She has integrated her pain. She has sat with her wounds, held them like children, and told them they are not unworthy. And from that place of radical self-acceptance, she no longer trades her worth for temporary company. That kind of woman changes a man, or breaks him. There is no in-between, because once he's known the scent of her silence, the sound of her unspoken boundaries, the calm in her refusal to beg, he cannot unsee her. Other women may try to mimic the aesthetic, but they lack the alchemy. Because this woman does not pretend to be untouchable, she simply refuses to betray herself again. Her strength is not performance, it is embodiment. And when she speaks, it's not to impress, it's to reveal. Her emotions are not weapons, they are sacred messengers, honored but never unleashed for manipulation. She loves deeply, but never desperately. And if she walks away, it's not because she didn't care, it's because she finally did. For herself. Men obsess because in her presence, they glimpse the version of womanhood they cannot control. Cannot seduce, you cannot reduce. A woman whose approval cannot be bought, whose desire cannot be earned through games, whose love is a mirror, not a reward. And when she turns her gaze inward, when she no longer looks to him for confirmation, he feels it in his bones, the vanishing, the unhooking, the unbearable void where his fantasy used to live. Because what he was addicted to was not her, but the hope that he could reach her without reaching himself. That is the silent devastation she leaves behind, not in what she takes, but in what she reveals was never his. Not her body, not her time, not her truth, only the illusion that he could access the infinite while remaining small. This is where the obsession turns inward. The spiraling begins. He replays the conversations, imagines different outcomes, wonders if he had said more, done less, smiled at the right time, leaned in, instead of pulling away. But none of that would have mattered, because this woman does not respond to tactics. She responds to truth, not polished, not perfect, but real. And real is what most men are terrified to become, because real means vulnerable. Real means uncertain. Real means putting down the sword and saying, I don't know how to do this, but I want to try. Not to win her back, but to find himself again. You see, the emotionally untouchable woman is not untouchable because she's cold. She is untouchable because she no longer betrays her soul for breadcrumbs. She has tasted emptiness disguised as love. She has swallowed apologies that came too late. She has been the healer, the fixer, the forgiver. And now, she is simply done. This kind of woman doesn't just change how a man views relationships, she changes how he views himself, because she refuses to participate in his unconscious scripts. She doesn't respond to the hot and cold tests. She doesn't reward inconsistency. She doesn't laugh to smooth over discomfort. She allows silence to stretch until the truth emerges. And for the man who has only known conditional connection, this is unbearable, because her presence doesn't give him something to control. It gives him something to confront, himself. She becomes the origin point of his shadow work, whether he knows it or not. In her refusal to absorb his chaos, she shows him the chaos within. In her emotional restraint, she exposes his hunger for validation. In her calm, she reveals his inner war. She does not attack. She reflects. That reflection is where the real terror lives. Because what he sees is not a woman who denied him. He sees a man who never became worthy. Not because he lacked value, but because he lacked intention. He moved from impulse, not presence, from performance, not authenticity. And now, in her absence, he finally feels the gravity of what her presence required. Not perfection, not wealth, not words, integrity. And that is what haunts him. Not that she left, but that she asked him to rise, and he didn't. The obsession, then, becomes ritual. He checks her social media, hoping for signs of regret. He watches her stories, looking for a crack in her glow. He wonders if she thinks of him, misses him, dreams of what could have been. But she does not linger in fantasy. She is not waiting for him to evolve. She is walking her own path. And that path leads inward, upward, beyond. This is the paradox that burns. The more he chases her energetically, the further she disappears. Not out of cruelty, out of alignment, because she is no longer available to men who live half-truths. She is not looking for someone to complete her. She has already come home to herself. If you are that woman, know this. Your untouchability is not a flaw. It is the fragrance of your evolution, the echo of your becoming. You are not meant to be understood by the unready. You are not meant to water yourself down for the parched lips of the emotionally unavailable. You are meant to shine unchosen, if that means shining undimmed. You are not intimidating. You are initiating. And some will run from the fire of your presence, but the one who is worthy will burn away everything false just to meet you there. Because only the man who has faced himself completely can hold a woman who does not need to be held, only met. And when that man arrives, not as a rescuer, not as a performer, not as a boy wearing the mask of charm, but as a sovereign soul who has wandered through his own wilderness, he will not tremble before her power. He will recognize it. He will not ask her to make herself smaller for his comfort, nor quieter for his ego. He will not need her to need him to feel whole. He will see her, not the fantasy, not the projection, but the truth. The woman who chose herself when no one else did. The woman who refused to beg, even when her heart ached to be heard. The woman who sat in her silence and rewrote the story of her worth. He will not fear her untouchability, because he has become touchable himself. Not with desperation, but with devotion. In his presence, she will not have to explain her boundaries. She will not have to shrink her intensity. She will not feel the need to apologize for the oceans she carries in her chest, because he will not try to hold her back. He will flow with her. He will not try to fix her. He will witness her in all her phases, in all her silence, in all her sovereign storms. That man will not obsess, because he has no use for control. He has tasted the pain of chasing what he was never ready to receive. And now, he has become the kind of man who no longer chases. He invites. He has met his own shadow, his own hunger, his own longing. And in doing so, he has learned how to love without needing to devour. Together, they will not enter a love of transaction, of roles, of tests passed and points earned. They will enter a union of recognition, where nothing needs to be proven, where presence is enough, where two sovereigns meet, not to complete one another, but to witness the other's completeness. That is what most men never reach. That is why they remain haunted by the woman who walked away without slamming the door, the one who did not throw stones, but simply stood too tall to follow them into their chaos, the one who was not cruel, only clear. And clarity to the unready feels like rejection, but to the awakened it feels like truth. So if you are a woman who has walked away, not out of pride but out of love for your own soul, let this be your confirmation. You did not lose him, you found yourself, and in doing so, you taught him the lesson life was too gentle to deliver. You are not here to be obsessed over. You are here to be honored. And if no one ever told you this before, let it echo now, in every cell of your being. You are not too much. You are not unreachable. You are not wrong for being whole before he arrived. You are the storm and the stillness. You are the question and the answer. You are the mirror, not the mask. So don't fold yourself into someone else's hunger just to feel seen. Don't drip your light into small containers just to feel held. You were never meant to be understood by those who have yet to understand themselves. You were meant to stand, to rise, to become. And when you do, when you stop trying to prove your worth to those who cannot meet it, something shifts. The air changes. The obsession ends, and what remains is not the ache of absence, but the radiance of presence. No longer the woman waiting to be chosen. You are the woman who chooses.